The New York Rangers trade Jacob Trouba, they extend Igor Shesterkin, and they come up clutch for a badly needed 4-2 win against the Pittsburgh Penguins. We talk about that, plus more details on Igor's contract extension, and will another Ranger be traded?
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1199 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. So I want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Rangers get a badly needed clutch victory at home against the Pittsburgh Penguins. I realize it's obviously been a drama-filled couple of days here, and obviously a really rough stretch of Ranger hockey even before that. The team having lost 6 out of 7 games. Penguins were hot coming into this game. I mean, if you have some doubts about whether the Penguins are a playoff team or not, I completely understand that. But they were hot coming into this one, and the Rangers found a way to get it done. Wasn't perfect, but I think there were a lot of things to like in this game. The Rangers stepped up their game. The Stars came through in a big way, a bigger way than they have certainly in any kind of recent history at all. And obviously, this is the first time that the Rangers took the ice since Jacob Trouba was traded and since Igor Shesterkin signed his big money extension. But yeah, for me, the theme of this game is Artemi Panarin and the rest of the Ranger Stars once again kind of leading the charge for this team. Vincent Trocheck ended up with 3 points in this game, and Artemi Panarin coming up clutch with a pair of goals and an assist. And you know, in our last episode, once it became obvious that Jacob Trouba was going to be traded and this Ranger team was going to be without a captain, at least for the short-term future and possibly the long-term future as well, my challenge, I kind of threw down the gauntlet to the other Ranger players, specifically the other guys that wear letters, the other alternate captains on this team. Who's going to step up? Who's going to be the guy to lead the way? In this game, for me, it was Artemi Panarin coming through with a couple of goals to, get the Rangers going a little bit, including a big-time goal at the end of a period. So that was nice to see the Rangers do that to a different team at the end of the period rather than having it done to them. But yeah, big goal by Panarin after the Penguins have made it 1-0. That's another thing that I loved about this game for the Rangers. We've noted on here, and I'm certainly not the only one to talk about this, that the Rangers really seem to struggle pretty badly in the shift that follows a goal. They're just a little bit flat-footed. This game was the complete opposite. Panarin here scored to tie the game at 1-1, just a minute and 9 seconds after the Penguins had made it 1-0. And then a little bit later in this game, we had the Penguins scoring a goal to tie it at 2-2, and then the Rangers retook the lead immediately thereafter. Less than a minute 30, that was a goal scored by Reilly Smith, and we'll get to that in due time. But as far as this Panarin goal, again, a lot of drama around this team. You fall behind 1-0. There's that little bit of like, oh, man, here we go again. It was critical for the Rangers to have a quick response like this because I think there could have been a little bit of a snowball effect. This game, I don't think the Rangers started terribly or anything like that. I thought they actually had one of their better starts recently, but it's one of those games where it just kind of felt like it was in a little bit of a lull. There wasn't really a whole lot going on either way. There wasn't a ton of energy in Madison Square Garden. This at least kind of woke everybody up a little bit. Certainly the fans, maybe the players as well. But just a really nice goal here. Trocheck leads Alexis Lafreniere into the neutral zone. Lafreniere gets the blue line, centers to Panarin. Panarin with the slap shot and finishes with some authority here, ties the score at 1-1. And like I said, this just kind of felt like it snapped everybody out of it. Really came at a critical moment in this game. Big time goal by Artemi Panarin, stepping up in a major way. And then, of course, we had Panarin with a last-second goal at the end of the second period to give the Rangers their first lead of this game at 2-1. Now, the Rangers did catch a little bit of a break here because, again, the score is still tied at this point, 1-1. The Penguins, with about 40 seconds to go in the second period, give or take a couple of seconds, they fire a shot off the post. It got past Igor Shesterkin. Here's the thing, though. The Rangers have not had any puck luck recently, but they haven't deserved any puck luck recently because their play just hasn't dictated that, they deserve a break or two here or there. The Rangers maybe, had a little bit of puck luck on their side here. The Penguins hit at least 2 posts. I think the Rangers hit a couple of posts as well. But when you're playing hard, you feel like maybe you've earned that break just a little bit more than when you're playing the way the Rangers have been playing in the basically all the 7 games that preceded this one. But you had, again, the Penguins, they get the shot off the post. The Penguins then had possession of the puck in the Ranger zone with less than 10 seconds to go in the second period. And keep in mind, what I'm talking about here is going to lead to a Ranger goal. That in and of itself, Penguins with possession in your zone and you end up scoring. That's pretty amazing. But, Panarin gets control of the puck, back to Miller, Miller over to Schneider. Schneider with a nice pass through the neutral zone to Vincent Trocheck. But keep in mind, to kind of update this whole situation here, when Schneider got control of the puck in his own zone, we're down to 6 seconds left in the second period here. And again, this all leads to a Panarin goal. So Schneider with a really nice pass down the ice to Vincent Trocheck. Trocheck gets the pass. He has his back. He's in the neutral zone. He has his back to the Penguin zone, and he sees Panarin charging toward him, gives it to Panarin. Panarin goes toward the net, veers to his right, takes the shot, and scores with less than a second remaining. So an absolutely clutch goal there by Artemi Panarin. And like I said, what a breath of fresh air to see the Rangers do something big at the end of a period rather than see them, kind of struggle a little bit, maybe give up a goal, or if not give up a goal, then have to be bailed out by Igor or by Quick. And, obviously that's something that's been happening lately and something that we hope that they can get away from. But this is a clutch goal by Artemi Panarin, a clutch performance by Artemi Panarin. And to kind of build on this, Panarin wasn't the only one. There were a couple of veterans that I thought stepped up in a meaningful way in this game. Chris Kreider was certainly one of them. We saw more aggression, more fire out of Chris Kreider in this game than I think we have certainly been seeing in recent history. And we know he can be a streaky player, but this goes way beyond like any kind of a scoring slump or anything like that. Kreider just felt like he was more in the game in this one. The intensity was there. The fire was there. That kind of intensity, that kind of fire that we want to see more out of Chris Kreider. This is why, and we've talked about this before, this is why Kreider can drive Ranger fans crazy, because he's got all the tools and it feels like he only uses a few of them, if that makes sense. Obviously he's lethal with those redirections, big part of the penalty kill and whatnot. So that's all well and good. But we saw him actually finish a couple of checks in this game. There was one early where he didn't really have to finish it. The Penguin had gotten rid of the puck, and Kreider hit him somewhat late. I mean, it wasn't like dirty or anything like that, but I was worried, especially because we're playing the Penguins, that the referee's arm might go in the air and then make it Kreider for charging there. But no, to me, Kreider was just finishing his check there. It was nice to see him do that. And then there was a play later in this game where Braden Schneider got taken down in the Pittsburgh zone. He got tripped up. The penalty was called, and Schneider hit the boards, really awkwardly and really hard. Now, I don't think this was dirty. It definitely was a penalty, and they called it as such. But Kreider saw his teammate go down, slam into the boards, pretty much at full speed there. It couldn't have been a fun landing for Braden Schneider. And Kreider immediately goes right after Pettersson, gets in his face, shoves him against the boards. He's tussling with him. Schneider and Raquel then got into it a little bit as well. Again, I don't think that Pettersson really did anything wrong here. There was nothing malicious or, fine or suspension worthy at all. But if you're Chris Kreider or a member of this Ranger leadership group, you gotta just go after him anyway. Who cares? You got to do something to wake your team up out of this slumber, to spark these guys. It's a rivalry game. To this point in the game, there hadn't really been a lot of fireworks, and Kreider just saw his teammate go down like that, and he wasn't going to stand for it. So that was awesome to see. And you got to remember, Kreider's name was at the top of that memo right along with Jacob Trouba. When that memo went out from Chris Drury to the rest of the league talking about how the Rangers could be open for business here, the two names that pretty much immediately leaked were Chris Kreider and Jacob Trouba. Jacob Trouba is not here anymore. Chris Kreider still is, and this isn't just Kreider, this is really all the Rangers, because more trades could be coming. This could still happen despite the win here. If you want to make sure that you're going to be here, the remedy, the biggest remedy is winning, and they at least got to win here. But also showing up, playing with some fire, playing with some urgency, playing with some intensity, and we saw that out of Kreider on multiple occasions in this game. Even Reilly Smith, and I don't really consider Smith part of the leadership group. Maybe he is behind the scenes. Who knows? To me, though, he's somebody that's probably going to be, in all likelihood, only here for one season at the most. But Smith, nevertheless, is one of the veterans in that room. Believe he's 33 years old, maybe 34. But we saw him, I think, play what was probably his best game as a New York Ranger. He, of course, was a healthy scratch not too long ago, and maybe the message was received. Maybe he responded to this in a positive way. They interviewed him after the game on the bench, and he seemed to take it all in stride and obviously, bounce back from that in a very meaningful way. He put a shot off the post early in this game. That was after he did a really nice job keeping the puck in the Penguin zone. And, of course, he ends up with the eventual game-winning goal in this contest. And Tremendous job, really, by this entire line, but especially by Smith. He wins a puck battle at the top of the Rangers zone, sends his guy down to the ice. Kreider is able to pick up the loose puck, and they're off to the races. And both these guys can move pretty good. Kreider leads Smith up the left side. Smith goes in over the blue line, passes to Kreider, or he's got Kreider to his right. Smith goes up the left side. It's a 2-on-1. The Penguins take away the potential pass to Kreider. So a good job by Smith reading this play here. He ends up taking the shot instead. It gets blocked. Zibanejad finds it. The save is made. Smith buries the rebound. He was right in the right spot to get that. And again, just like the earlier Ranger goal, this was a very quick response to the Penguins scoring. The Penguins had just tied the game about midway through the third period, not quite midway, but 11 minutes or so to go there. And great response here by Reilly Smith and by really this entire Ranger line. And honestly, to take it a step further, this whole line, Kreider, Mika, and Smith, they've been under fire all season. For a while, Smith was moved away from them, and now he's back with them. And the Rangers have been juggling the lines on and off for quite some time now. But this is how the Rangers started the season with these three together, and it might be how they go forward. I mean, for sure in the next game, you got to give these guys another game together because this is one of the best games that they've played together, I would say, pretty much all season. They were actually creating scoring opportunities at 5v5. It happened multiple times in this game, so that was awesome. And I'll repeat something here that I said about Kreider earlier. It applies to the whole team. If you want to make sure that you're still on this team, just start bringing it every night and play with the kind of urgency and the kind of purpose that we saw really from most of the team in this game. And again, it was not perfect. They made some mistakes. There were some hiccups here and there, probably some unnecessary penalties that they didn't need to take. Not very good defense on one of the goals that was scored by the Penguins. We'll get to that in a little bit here, but for the most part, I thought the Rangers, really stepped up in this game. And, like I said, the turnaround had to start somewhere. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing that we can take away from this. And if you want to be an eternal optimist, keep in mind, hey, Rangers have won 2 out of 3 here. So it's a start. And obviously they're going to be back in action against the Kraken. It's a winnable game. Rangers are at home. Got to build on what they did here and win your third game in the last 4. And I think we'll all be starting to feel a little bit better. Doesn't cure everything that ails the Rangers, but obviously things start to feel like they're heading back in the right direction. So going to keep everything moving in just a second. I want to talk about Igor Shesterkin. Obviously, we covered him in the last episode, the big extension that he signed. We're going to talk about his performance in this game and why I think he absolutely needed a game like this. There's multiple reasons why, and we'll get to that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by PrizePicks. If you love sports, you're going to love PrizePicks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, baseball, or any of your favorite sports, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in on the action. Here's what you need to get started today. You can win up to 200 times your money on PrizePicks. Get $50 instantly. When you play your first $5 lineup, no need to win. The $50 is guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers fun weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where select player projections are discounted up to 25%. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, we just want to take a minute to thank everybody, as always, for tuning into the Locked On New York Ranger podcast. The Everydayers, big shout out to you guys. Maybe we picked up a couple new listeners as well, given all the drama surrounding this team. That's when the numbers go up, when things are either awesome or when things are falling apart. If it's one extreme or the other, that's when people tend to tune in. But regardless, however many episodes you've checked out, thank you guys so much. And got a lot to do still. I mean, we're not done with this whole flurry of recent Ranger action here. We're actually going to do a little bit of this in today's episode, talk about the possibility of another trade by the New York Rangers. We'll see what happens there. We've got Rangers Kraken on Sunday afternoon at 1 p.m. We'll talk about whatever happens in that game. We will also talk about Urho Lehkonen. I believe I'm saying that right. The player that the Rangers acquired from the Ducks in exchange for Jacob Trouba. We've barely talked about him. I mean, he's not like a superstar player, obviously, but that'll give you an idea of just how busy things have been, that the player we acquired in a trade has kind of been on the back burner. But we will get to him. We'll debate the next Ranger captain. More Jacob Trouba fallout. We're going to do an episode where we actually say some nice things about Jacob Trouba. I've been critical of his play, like a lot of you have as well, but there were some good moments where he was a New York Ranger and when he was the captain as well. But for right now, let's keep the focus on this game and specifically Igor Shesterkin. You know what? Igor Shesterkin had to bring it. He had to have a big-time game. He had to shut the Penguins down for the most part. He was able to do that, stop 20 of 22 shots. When you sign a contract that makes you the highest paid goalie in the history of the sport, after you already rejected the Rangers offer earlier this season or in the offseason that would have literally done the same thing, made him the highest paid goalie in the history of the sport, you can't then later that day or later that night go out onto the ice and just lay an egg and get run out of the building at home on Garden Ice by the Rangers' rival. Igor Shesterkin had to be on top of his game, and I think he was. He made some really nice saves in this one for sure. As far as the highlights, we'll get to the highlights, but I want to talk about both the goals that he allowed. I think the first one, maybe he would want this one back. Lizotte was circling the offensive zone. The Rangers were pretty stationary. Sean Avery was calling out Sam Carrick on this play. Carrick got a little bit lost on this play. Lafreniere, I thought, could have made a play and just didn't. Braden Schneider at one point had his back turned. So not a banner defensive play by really any of the Rangers that were on the ice here. But, the shot ultimately went right past Igor Shesterkin's glove, and I think he would have wanted that one back. The second one, I'm not going to put this one on Igor. The Rangers had just killed off a power play in the third. This obviously tied the game. Rangers were in the middle of a change, and what it looked like happened to me, Jones was getting off the ice because I think the Rangers were in a spot where it was looking like they were three defensemen out there, which isn't really ideal, but it's not like you can't work with it. I mean, maybe you're out of position and out of sorts a little bit, but it was not a time for a line change. And unfortunately, the Penguins were able to go in there and get a goal. There was a big hit by Carrick on Tomasino after Tomasino scored, but it was a little bit too late. This is a snipe. I can't put this one on Igor at all. Just a perfectly placed shot. And again, I think the Rangers kind of got caught running around a little bit on this play. But as far as the highlights, I mean, a couple of solid early saves that I think kind of set the tone for Igor Shesterkin. There were a couple of times where Igor denied Crosby in this game. Crosby was on the doorstep trying to open up Igor and go 5-hole, and Igor just stayed with him all the way, would not give him that option, was able to keep the puck out. He made a lot of saves, did Igor, when the Rangers were shorthanded. Again, the Rangers took a good amount of penalties in this game. I mean, again, they're playing the Penguins, so the Penguins are going to get a bunch of power plays, and, I have to have some fun with that. But, yeah, I mean, look, Igor, there was one power play specifically where the Penguins ended up with, I believe it was at least 4 shots on goal. I think that was the final total as well. But yeah, I mean, he came up big there for sure. And then the highlight reel save, the one that I think pretty much everybody was talking about, and the one that was kind of doing its rounds as far as plays of the night, the awesome windmill glove save that Igor Shesterkin made on Evgeny Malkin. Just a clutch stop there, flashing the leather. And he really picked up his defenseman on this play because Schneider and Lindgren were out there together. And Schneider tried to kind of lead Lindgren out of the zone. It wasn't really the best pass. It was in the skates a little bit. I mean, maybe Lindgren could have handled it. But the bottom line, one Ranger defenseman tried to pass to the other Ranger defenseman. Should have been a fairly simple play, I think. But it wasn't able to be handled. The puck is loose. The Penguins keep it in. A couple of passes later, Malkin's got that grade A chance. And Igor Shesterkin with an even better save. Just absolutely outstanding. And then this one stood out to me as well because the Rangers, down the stretch in this game, only up 3-2, about 3 minutes or so to go. And a blocker save by Igor Shesterkin during a Penguins sustained offensive zone possession. But then Crosby tries to rebound. And once again, Igor is able to get over to the post, not give him anything, denies the stuff in attempts there, and obviously keeps the Rangers in front. And I love this, too. This was a lot of fire being shown by Igor Shesterkin. This happened with about, I mean, we're getting down to, I think there was less than a minute to go at this point. It couldn't have been much more than that because the Rangers gave themselves an insurance goal with just north of 1:30 to go. You had Lafreniere feeding Trocheck on the rush and Trocheck scoring to make it 4-2. So when that happened, it's Rangers-Penguins, and I'm thinking oh, man, something's going to happen because now this game, not completely out of reach, but for the most part, it seems like the Rangers have it in hand, up by 2 goals with only a minute 30 to go. Next thing you know, Igor Shesterkin's right in the middle of something. It wasn't his fault. He was behind the net and ended up getting tripped by Raquel and went down to the ice. And as Raquel was skating away, Igor basically jabs him in the back with his stick. And obviously that brings over Adam Fox. Fox goes after Raquel. Lindgren got in there. A couple other players on the Penguins. Everybody got together. And, Igor for sure was in there as well. And a lot of trash talk going on as well. But one of the things that I loved about this seemed to be the I don't know, kind of like the galvanizing moment for this team. I mean, look, they were going to win the game regardless of what happened with the extracurriculars here. But, if that's not going to fire you up, seeing your goalie get taken down behind the net, whether you believe it was on purpose or not, and that one, 50-50, could have gone either way. It might have been, one of those like kind of accidental on purpose kind of deals, or it might have been a complete accident. I don't know. Only Raquel can answer that question. But the bottom line, your goalie got taken down by another player. You're going to take exception to that. That's exactly what the Rangers did. And every player on the ice, basically coming to his defense. And this is, I think, also as loud as the Garden crowd got in this game. The announcers were talking about this pretty much ad nauseum the entire night. I mean, they were really fixated on how much noise the Ranger crowd was making. I realize there's a lot of crazy storylines surrounding the Rangers going into this game, and I get that. And they were kind of taking the temperature of Madison Square Garden, but man, they were just going on and on and on about this. But I will say, this I think was as loud as this Garden crowd got the entire night. They were fired up after this loud Igor chants. And one last Igor moment before obviously the game ended. Puck goes behind the Ranger net. Igor's got it on his stick. He's looking, man. He's looking to take that shot down the ice. I think he was really smart not to do that, though. There were only 20 seconds left at this point. You're up by 2. It seems like if you're ever going to go for it, this is a good spot, but it wasn't there. There were a couple Penguins converging on him. It wasn't there. There's no way. And I know Igor is a good puck handler. He was not going to score into the empty net on this play. So I like the fact that he just kind of settled everything down. I think he basically just handed it off to one of his defensemen, and the clock runs out, and the Rangers win, and they get 2 very much needed points and some much needed feel-good moments in there as well. As far as Igor Shesterkin goes, there is one other bit of news as it pertains to his contract. And obviously, we covered the Igor Shesterkin extension in our last episode. I said, though, I recorded this yesterday, and one of the things that I mentioned was that looking on Puckpedia, looking at all of the NHL reporters, looking at the local Ranger reporters, and just kind of scouring the internet as much as I could, I did not see anything about a no-move clause of any kind in Igor Shesterkin's contract. And what I mentioned at that time was, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. But at the time, I wasn't seeing it. So I was wondering if maybe it didn't trade any no-move clause. Well, quite the opposite. In fact, he has a full no-move clause, does Igor Shesterkin, for the duration of this contract. So that's a little bit less than ideal. I mean, I don't think the Rangers are going to be looking to trade him anyway, but it'd be nice to know that you at least have that option. Maybe you give him the full no move for the first 4 years of his contract, or even the first 5 years. And then toward the end, you can move him if you feel like you have to. But there was a tweet from Elliot Friedman, who outlined a couple more details about Igor's contract, things that we didn't know about yesterday. Again, the full no move clause all the way through the contract. We now know that. This is interesting, too. This also came from Elliot Friedman. This is what he said in his tweet. According to a couple other teams, Shesterkin actually left money on the table, but the Rangers really wanted to get this done, and Shesterkin ultimately wanted to stay. So, if this is to be believed, it sounds like it's possible that Igor could have ended up with even more money, but eventually decided to just draw the line and sign the contract for $11.5 million. Now, okay, 2 things can be true at the same time here. That might actually be true. It's possible that if Igor makes it to the open market, that he would have ended up getting more money either from the Rangers or from some other team. Maybe he leverages another team's offer against the Rangers to get them to up their offer. Anything could be possible if Igor Shesterkin gets to unrestricted free agency. So that can be true that he did, give them a little bit of a break. It can also be true that let's keep things in perspective here. Obviously, he just became the highest paid goalie in the history of the NHL. He may have done the Rangers a very small favor. I don't think we can look at this objectively and say that he did them a massive favor. That's just my thought on it. I'm still happy about this contract extension. I mean, to me, I think it's a little bit silly that there's certain Ranger fans that are just infuriated by this. And the question that I continue to pose to these Ranger fans, and I posted it on Twitter earlier today, and a couple of debates with a couple different Twitter users. But the question that I asked is, what is the alternative if Igor Shesterkin does not sign this extension with the Rangers? Who is out there on opening night in net for the Rangers next season if it is not Igor Shesterkin? And not that I have like this massive following on Twitter, but nobody has been able to give me any kind of an answer. Nobody has even thrown out an option as far as like, Quick or Garand. Not that I even think these are good options, but throw out something and throw out one of the unrestricted free agents. Give me some kind of an idea who could be a trade target the Rangers go after. Nobody's really come up with anything. So again, I propose this question to everybody listening to this, watching this. Leave the answer in the YouTube comment section. Email me. Do whatever you got to do. If you are against this Igor Shesterkin contract extension, then I would like to know, and I'm just being very genuine here and very honest, I just want to know, what is your plan for next season? Who's in net for the Rangers on opening night? It's just, the price is a little bit high, and I will admit that, and I talked about that in great detail in the last episode, but it just really surprises me how many Ranger fans there are that are infuriated by the fact that the Rangers just signed their goalie to a long-term extension. I don't know, just a bit strange to me, but yeah, everybody's entitled to their opinion. But like I said, if you're completely against this idea of Igor signing this big long-term deal and you want to trade him, you want to let him walk, you want him to be an ex-Ranger next season, then you got to let me know, okay, well, what was your plan for next season? I'm just curious to see, because I'm all about some outside-the-box ideas, and maybe there's something that I hadn't thought of. But yeah, lay it on me. Let me know what you think the alternative would have been. But we're going to keep everything rolling in just a second here. I'm going to shift our attention to the next Ranger trade, if it's coming, when it might be happening, and who might be on the move for the Rangers. We will talk about that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's keep everything rolling here. So I found this interesting. Toward the start of this game, obviously they've got Emily Kaplan ringside, and she's been right on top of a bunch of these stories. I believe she had the Igor Shesterkin extension story first, and she might have been one of the first people to confirm the Jacob Trouba trade as well. But she was talking about what's next for the Rangers and how's everybody responding to this. And she threw out a couple of names. There were 4 names that she mentioned that maybe the Rangers could look to trade next as they continue this retooling, if they continue this retooling. The 4 names, in no particular order, were Reilly Smith, Kaapo Kakko, Chris Kreider, and Ryan Lindgren. So, I will say, it doesn't feel like the Rangers are done right now. I mean, maybe, it's interesting because, let me go ahead and read this now. I was going to save this for later, but let me read this Chris Drury quote now, and then I'm going to have some thoughts on, everything that he said and what this could mean for the Rangers going forward. So, he faced the media, and this is what he had to say about, the Rangers going forward here and possibly making more trades. We certainly are not opposed to making more changes, but big picture, with that said, the team has been through a lot the last couple weeks, and certainly this week. We'd like to let the dust settle a little bit, let some of the new players that we've acquired from Anaheim, Berard, Mancini, different pieces, obviously moving out the captain as well. We just like to let the team get settled in with this a little bit. Which is interesting because the way that reads to me initially is like, okay, you're going to let them get settled, and then you're going to rock the foundation again by then making some trades and start this whole thing all over again. That's kind of an interesting approach. To me, I think looking at it a little bit deeper, this reads to me like he's telling the Rangers right now, you guys are on the clock. You saw we meant business. You saw we're not playing around. Jacob Trouba was indeed traded. That's the captain. He's gone. He's not coming back. It's over. We move forward with what we've got. And I feel like this message now being sent to the Rangers is the rest of you guys are still on the clock. And maybe if the Rangers pick it up, if they start winning some games, if they start looking like the team that we saw for pretty much all of last season, that he is willing to change his mind on that and not start dealing people left and right. It's at least possible. I still think at one point here, though, we are going to see a Ranger on this current roster get traded somewhere else. No guarantees. We'll see what happens, but there's a long time between now and the trade deadline. And by sending out that memo, I think Drury made it very, very clear that the Rangers are indeed open for business. Will they stop at Jacob Trouba? Only time is going to tell there. But I did want to take a quick look at the 4 players that were mentioned by Emily Kaplan during this report and just have some quick thoughts on those guys and, see how viable it is that maybe these guys will be on the move. We will start with Chris Kreider. I don't think it's going to be him. And I don't think it should be him. I don't think it will be him. The Rangers with Kreider, part of the reason for moving him, I think, would have been to shake up the core a little bit. They've already done that by trading Jacob Trouba. So the need to do that, I don't think, is as big as maybe it was, 24 hours ago before this trade of Trouba happened. And the other thing that the Trouba trade did is it opened up a boatload of cap space for the New York Rangers. They're going to have a ton of cap space to work with when the trade deadline rolls around. So two of the biggest reasons for trading Chris Kreider to me are really no longer there. And I think for that reason, and also the fact that I think the Rangers, in spite of some of his tendencies that will drive Ranger fans crazy from time to time, I think they still do see him as a very important piece of the puzzle. And I just don't think he's going to get traded. He played well in this last game, showed some more fire, some more intensity, and hopefully Kreider can step up as one of the leaders of this team going forward. I mean, he should. He's the longest tenured player and one of the alternate captains, and this team no longer has a captain. So hopefully that's on the docket for Chris Kreider. Ryan Lindgren. This one to me seems probably the most likely out of this entire bunch. I would think as far as a team acquiring him, maybe you're looking at a team that is contending this year that needs a little bit more depth at defenseman, needs a little bit more toughness and grit. I think Ryan Lindgren could certainly give you that. And he can also give you some playoff experience. Obviously, Lindgren's been a part of these deep playoff runs for the Rangers, just like, pretty much every player of this core has been. So, we'll see. Maybe you trade Ryan Lindgren and, you get a draft pick and you then use that draft pick to go out and strike some other trade and bring in some other NHL player that you really want to go out and get. We'll see. I do think one thing that limits the possibility of Lindgren being traded, it certainly doesn't take it away, but the fact that Jacob Trouba is no longer here, if you trade Lindgren and you don't get a defenseman back, well, now, Mancini's going to be in the lineup, and that's fine. I think Mancini can get by as a defenseman, but who's your sixth defenseman? I mean, you could just throw Ruhwedel out there. I think that's at least an option. Do you call it Matthew Robertson? He's already been sent back down. Do you just throw him back out there and say, okay, dude, sink or swim. Let's see what you got. And maybe if Robertson falters, now you're looking at, one of the veterans from the Wolfpack, whether that's Ben Harper, Connor Mackey, Brandon Scanlon. I guess they're all options. I don't think they're all like impressive options, but if Lindgren gets traded, I would look for the Rangers to then turn around and try to bring in a defenseman to take his place. Because I'm not so sure that the answer is in-house for the Rangers right now. Reilly Smith, again, I think this was the best game that he's played as a New York Ranger. He was all over the place, seemed to really have his legs, and that's the best game that we've seen that line play together, possibly the entire season. Of course, Smith and Mika and Kreider. So the thing that I think might save Brendan Smith, and I talked about this a while back. We talked about Smith very briefly. The thing that might actually save Brendan Smith from being traded is the fact that this would make Chris Drury not look good at all, because Drury went out there in the offseason and he sent a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick to the Rangers' division rival, the Pittsburgh Penguins. If he then flips Reilly Smith for a lesser draft pick, that's not going to look good on him at all, especially if he does it only 25 games or wherever we are into the next season. So for Drury saving face, that reason alone might be enough to keep Reilly Smith from getting dealt. Because, think about it. If Drury, gives all that up to the Penguins and then he trades Reilly Smith, James Dolan, if James Dolan knows who Reilly Smith is, then he might actually have some questions for Chris Drury about, okay, what's going on here? So that alone might keep Reilly Smith in the fray. If the Rangers were to trade him, though, and they want to turn over the reins to Brett Berard once he's healthy, maybe Brandon Hoffman gets called up and he's healthy and he's ready to go, and they want to just throw those guys out there, I think that could be an option as well. But, I don't know. It could really go either way with Reilly Smith. He's an impending UFA, too, so it's not like they have to, keep him in-house for next season or anything like that. At most, Reilly Smith is going to spend one season with the Rangers. Kaapo Kakko. I really don't want Kakko to be the fall guy. I think overall he's played, a solid brand of hockey this season. But one thought did occur to me as far as why the Rangers might look to do this. Kakko has played well this season. I think this is probably so far the best stretch of hockey that we've seen him play. He's a good defensive forward. He's tripped in offensively from time to time. He's higher up in terms of 5v5 points on the Rangers than you would expect. He's ahead of Kreider. He's ahead of Mika. He's ahead of Adam Fox in that department. But the one thing you can say about Kakko, we're in year 6 right now, and we've kind of seen this story before, right? There's been a couple of times in the past, the last handful of seasons here, where it feels like, oh man, Kakko, he's arriving. He's figuring it out. It's his time. He's gonna climb to new heights. And it never really happens, right? At least certainly not from a scoring perspective. I think Kakko is somebody that could have value, and that's probably why his name is coming up in trade talks, because even without the tremendous scoring that you thought you were going to get from the number 2 overall pick, he is a player that does have a well-rounded game. He's a good defensive forward, a good depth piece, and he too has, at this point, a lot of playoff experience. So he could be appealing to some teams, but man, I don't want Kakko to be the fall guy. To me, through these bad stretches of Ranger hockey this season, he's one of the few guys that it feels like goes out there and brings it. I really like the idea of him continuing to be, at least from time to time, on that shutdown line alongside of Will Cooley and Filipino. Those three have done a really nice job together. I don't want it to be Kakko, but he is on a 1-year deal, so I think it's at least possible that he gets moved as well for all those reasons that I just mentioned. But I hope it doesn't happen. So figure we can call it there for today. Once again, if you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.